It is uncommon enough to find a book that changes one's life, but far more extraordinary to encounter a work that has the potential to impact human history. Nearly 40 years ago, before there was an environmental movement, a courageous woman wrote a most provocative, uncontroversial book that changed the course of history. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring spawned worldwide awareness of the dangers of environmental pollution and kindled an activist response which endures to this day. Among the first to publicly declare that the use of pesticides and chemical toxins was a threat to all life, Carson was ridiculed and vilified at first, even by many of her peers, but was ultimately considered one of the most important voices of the 20th century. Silent Spring is still widely regarded as the cornerstone of environmentalism. Today, before there is prevalent public awareness of an ongoing extraterrestrial incursion in our midst, a similarly courageous man, a previously hidden spiritual teacher, comes forward bearing an extraordinary and disturbing communique from beyond our planetary sphere. With the allies of humanity, Marshall Vian Summers is the first spiritual leader of our time to unequivocally declare that the unbidden presence and clandestine actions of our extraterrestrial visitors constitute a profound threat to human freedom. While at first, like Carson, Summers will surely meet with derision and disparagement, he may ultimately be recognized as one of the world's most important voices in the fields of extraterrestrial intelligence, human spirituality, and evolution of consciousness. Likewise, the allies of humanity may prove pivotal in ensuring the very future of our species, not only awakening us to the profound challenges of a silent alien invasion, but also igniting an unprecedented movement of resistance and empowerment. Though the circumstances of the origin of this explosively controversial material may be problematic for some, the perspective it represents and the urgent message it conveys demand our deepest consideration and resolute response. Here we are all too plausibly confronted with the assertion that the increasing appearance of UFOs and other related phenomena are symptomatic of nothing less than a subtle and heretofore unopposed intervention by extraterrestrial forces who seek to exploit Earth's resources entirely for their own benefit. How do we appropriately respond to such a disturbing and outrageous claim? Shall we ignore it or dismiss it out of hand, as many of Carson's detractors did? Or shall we investigate and attempt to understand exactly what is being offered here? If we choose to investigate and understand, here is what we will find. A thorough review of recent decades of worldwide research into UFO activity and other apparently extraterrestrial phenomena, e.g., alien abduction and implants, animal mutilations, and even psychological possession yields ample evidence for the Allies' perspective. Indeed, the information contained in the Allies' discourses stunningly clarifies issues that have puzzled researchers for years, accounting for much mysterious but persistent evidence. Once we have investigated these matters and satisfied ourselves that the Allies' message is not only plausible but compelling, what then? Our considerations will inevitably lead to the inescapable conclusion that our predicament today has profound parallels to the incursion of European civilization into the Americas beginning in the 15th century, when indigenous peoples were unable to comprehend and adequately respond to the complexity and danger of the forces visiting their shores. The visitors came in the name of God, exhibiting impressive technology and purporting to offer a more advanced and more civilized way of life. It is important to note that the European invaders were not evil incarnate but merely opportunistic, leaving in their wake a legacy of unintended devastation. Here is the point. The radical and wide-scale violation of fundamental freedoms that Native Americans subsequently experienced, including the rapid decimation of their population, is not only a monumental human tragedy, but also a powerful object lesson for our current situation. This time, we are all the native people of this one world, and unless we can collectively muster a more creative and unified response, we may suffer a similar fate. This is precisely the realization that the Allies of Humanity precipitates. Yet, this is a book that can change lives, for it activates a deep inner calling that reminds us of our purpose in being alive at this moment in human history and brings us face to face with nothing less than our destiny. Here we are confronted with the most uncomfortable realization of all. The very future of humanity may well depend on how we respond to this message. While the Allies of Humanity is profoundly cautionary, there is no inciting of fear or doom and gloom here. Instead, the message offers extraordinary hope in what is now a most dangerous and difficult situation. The obvious intention is to preserve and empower human freedom, and to catalyze personal and collective response to the alien intervention. Fittingly, Rachel Carson herself once prophetically identified the very problem that impedes our ability to respond to this current crisis. "We still haven't become mature enough," she said, "to think of ourselves as only a very tiny part of a vast and incredible universe. Clearly, we have long needed a new understanding of ourselves, of our place in the cosmos, and of life in the greater community, the larger physical and spiritual universe into which we are now emerging." Fortunately, the Allies of Humanity serves as a gateway into a surprisingly substantial body of spiritual teachings and practices that promises to inculcate the requisite species maturity with a perspective that is neither earthbound nor anthropocentric, but instead is rooted in older, deeper and more universal traditions. Ultimately, the message of the Allies of Humanity challenges nearly all of our fundamental notions of reality, simultaneously giving us our greatest opportunity for advancement and our greatest challenge for survival. While the current crisis threatens our self-determination as a species, it may also provide a much-needed foundation upon which to bring unity to the human race, a near impossibility without this larger context. With the perspective offered in the Allies of Humanity and the larger body of teachings represented by Summers, we are given both the imperative and the inspiration to join together in a deeper understanding to serve the further evolution of humanity. In his report for Time magazine's review of the 100 most influential voices of the 20th century, Peter Matthiessen wrote of Rachel Carson, "Before there was an environmental movement, there was one brave woman and her very brave book. Some years from now, we may be able to similarly say of Marshall Vine Summers. Before there was a human freedom movement to resist the extraterrestrial intervention, there was one brave man and his very brave message, the Allies of Humanity. This time, may our response be more swift, more decisive, and more united." The Allies of Humanity is being presented to prepare people for a whole new reality that is largely hidden and unrecognized in the world today. It provides a new perspective that empowers people to face the greatest challenge and opportunity that we, as a race, have ever encountered. The Allies' briefings contain a number of critical if not alarming statements about the growing extraterrestrial intervention and integration into the human race and about the extraterrestrial activities and hidden agenda. The purpose of the Allies' briefings is not to provide hard evidence about the reality of the visitation to our world, which is already well documented in many other fine books and research journals on the subject. The purpose of the Allies' briefings is to address the dramatic and far-reaching implications of this phenomenon, to challenge our human tendencies and assumptions regarding it, and to alert the human family to the great threshold we now face. The briefings provide a glimpse into the reality of intelligent life in the universe and what contact will really mean. For many readers, what is revealed in the Allies of Humanity will be entirely new. For others, it will be a confirmation of things they have long felt and known. Though this book provides an urgent message, it is also about moving towards a higher consciousness called knowledge, which includes a greater telepathic facility among people and between races. In light of this, the Allies' briefings were transmitted to the author from a multiracial, extraterrestrial group of individuals who refer to themselves as the Allies of Humanity. They describe themselves as physical beings from other worlds who have gathered in our solar system near the Earth for the purpose of observing the communications and activities of those alien races who are here in our world, interfering in human affairs. They emphasize that they themselves are not physically present in our world and are providing needed wisdom, not technology or interference. The Allies' briefings were given to the author over a one-year period. They offer perspective and vision into a complex subject which, despite decades of mounting evidence, continues to baffle researchers. Yet this perspective is not romantic, speculative or idealistic in its approach to this subject. To the contrary, it is bluntly realistic and uncompromising to the point where it may be quite challenging, even to a reader who is well versed in this subject. Therefore, to receive what this book has to offer requires that you suspend, for a moment at least, many of the beliefs, assumptions and questions that you may have about extraterrestrial contact and even about how this book was received. The contents of this book are like a message in a bottle sent here from beyond the world. Thus, we should not be so concerned about the bottle but about the message itself. To truly understand this challenging message, we must confront and question many of the prevailing assumptions and tendencies. Though this book provides an urgent message, it is also about moving towards a higher consciousness called knowledge, which includes a greater telepathic facility among people and between races. In light of this, the Allies' briefings were transmitted to the author from a multiracial, extraterrestrial group of individuals who refer to themselves as the Allies of Humanity. They describe themselves as physical beings from other worlds who have gathered in our solar system near the Earth for the purpose of observing the communications and activities of those alien races who are here in our world, interfering in human affairs. They emphasize that they themselves are not physically present in our world and are providing needed wisdom, not technology or interference. The Allies' briefings were given to the author over a 1-year period. They offer perspective and vision into a complex subject which, despite decades of mounting evidence, continues to baffle researchers. Yet this perspective is not romantic, speculative or idealistic in its approach to this subject. To the contrary, it is bluntly realistic and uncompromising to the point where it may be quite challenging, even to a reader who is well versed in this subject. Therefore, to receive what this book has to offer requires that you suspend, for a moment at least, many of the beliefs, assumptions and questions that you may have about extraterrestrial contact and even about how this book was received. The contents of this book are like a message in a bottle sent here from beyond the world. Thus, we should not be so concerned about the bottle but about the message itself. To truly understand this challenging message, we must confront and question many of the prevailing assumptions and tendencies regarding the possibility and the reality of contact. These include denial, hopeful expectation, misinterpreting the evidence to affirm our beliefs, wanting and expecting salvation from the visitors, believing that a technology will save us, feeling hopeless and submissive to what we assume is a superior force, demanding government disclosure but not a disclosure, condemning human leaders and institutions while maintaining unquestioned acceptance of the visitors, assuming that because they have not attacked or invaded us, they must be here for our good, assuming that advanced technology equals advanced ethics and spirituality, believing that this phenomenon is a mystery when in fact it is a comprehensible event, believing that it's in some way have claim to humanity and to this planet, and believing that humanity is irredeemable and cannot make it on its own. The Allies' briefings challenge such assumptions and tendencies and explode many of the myths we currently have about who is visiting us and why they are here. The Allies of Humanity briefings give us a greater perspective and a deeper understanding of our destiny within a larger panorama of intelligent life in the universe. In order to achieve this, the Allies do not speak to our analytical mind but to knowledge, the deeper part of our being where the truth, however clouded, can be directly discerned and experienced. The Allies of Humanity Book 1 will raise many questions, which will require further exploration and contemplation. Its focus is not to provide names, dates and places but to provide a perspective on the presence in the world and on life in the universe that we as human beings could not otherwise have. While still living in isolation on the surface of our world, we cannot yet see and know what is happening regarding intelligent life beyond our borders. For this we need help of a very extraordinary kind. We may not recognize or accept such help at first. Yet it is here. The Allies' stated purpose is to alert us to the risks of emerging into a greater community of intelligent life and to assist us in successfully crossing this great threshold in such a way that human freedom, sovereignty and self-determination can be preserved. The Allies are here to advise us of the need for humanity to establish our own rules of engagement during this unprecedented time. According to the Allies, if we are wise, prepared and united, we will then be able to take our destined place as a mature and free race in the greater community. Over the course of time that this series of briefings occurred, The Allies repeated certain key ideas that they felt were vital to our understanding. We have maintained these reiterations in the book in order to preserve the intention and integrity of their communication. Because of the urgent nature of the Allies' message and because of the forces in the world that would oppose this message, there is a wisdom and a necessity to these repetitions. Following the publication of the Allies of Humanity Book 1 in 2001, the Allies provided a second set of briefings to complete their vital message to humanity. The Allies of Humanity Book 2, published in 2005, presents startling new information on the interactions between races in our local universe and on the nature, purpose and most hidden activities of those races who are interfering in human affairs. Thanks to those readers who felt the urgency of the Allies' message and translated the briefings into other languages, there is an expanding worldwide awareness of the reality of the intervention. We at New Knowledge Library consider that these two sets of briefings contain what may be one of the most important messages being communicated in the world today. The Allies of Humanity is not just another book speculating about the UFO phenomenon. It is a genuine transformational message aimed directly at the underlying purpose of the alien intervention in order to raise the awareness that we will need to face the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead. The Allies serve humanity because they serve the reclamation and expression of knowledge everywhere in the greater community. They represent the wise in many worlds who support a greater purpose in life. Together they share a greater knowledge and wisdom that can be transferred across vast distances of space and across all the boundaries of race, culture, temperament and environment. Their wisdom is pervasive. Their skill is great. Their presence is hidden. They recognize you because they realize that you are an emerging race, emerging into a very difficult and competitive environment in the greater community. Over 20 years ago, a group of individuals from several different worlds gathered at a discrete location in our solar system near the Earth for the purpose of observing the alien visitation that is occurring in our world. From their hidden vantage point, they were able to determine the identity, organization and intentions of those visiting our world and monitor the visitors' activities. This group of observers call themselves the Allies of Humanity. This is their report. It is a great honor for us to be able to present this information to all of you who are fortunate enough to hear this message. We are the Allies of Humanity. This transmission is being made possible by the presence of the Unseen Ones, the spiritual counselors who oversee the development of intelligent life both within your world and throughout the greater community of worlds. We are not communicating through any mechanical device, but through a spiritual channel that is free from interference. Though we live in the physical, as do you, we are given the privilege to communicate in this way in order to deliver the information that we must share with you. We represent a small group who are observing the events of your world. We come from the greater community. We do not interfere in human affairs. We have no establishment here. We have been sent for a very specific purpose. To witness the events that are occurring in your world and, given the opportunity to do so, to communicate to you what we see and what we know. For you, live.on the surface of your world and cannot see the affairs that surround it. nor can you see clearly the visitation that is occurring in your world at this time or what it portends for your future. We would like to give testimony to this. We are doing so at the request of the unseen ones, for we have been sent for this purpose. The information that we are about to impart to you may seem very challenging and startling. It is perhaps unexpected by many who will hear this message. We understand this difficulty, for we have had to face this within our own cultures. As you hear the information, it may be difficult to accept at first, but it is vital for all who would seek to make a contribution in the world. For many years we have been observing the affairs of your world. We seek no relations with humanity. We are not here on a diplomatic mission. We have been sent by the unseen ones to live in the proximity of your world in order to observe the events we are about to describe. Our names are not important. They would be meaningless to you. And we shall not impart them for our own safety, for we must remain hidden in order that we may serve. To begin, it is necessary for people everywhere to understand that humanity is emerging into a greater community of intelligent life. Your world is being visited by several alien races and by several different organizations of races. This has been actively going on for some time. There have been visitations throughout human history, but nothing of this magnitude. The advent of nuclear weapons and the destruction of your natural world have brought these forces to your shores. On the surface of your world and cannot see the affairs that surround it. Nor can you see clearly the visitation that is occurring in your world at this time or what it portends for your future. We would like to give testimony to this. We are doing so at the request of the unseen ones, for we have been sent for this purpose. The information that we are about to impart to you may seem very challenging and startling. It is perhaps unexpected by many who will hear this message. We understand this difficulty, for we have had to face this within our own cultures. As you hear the information, it may be difficult to accept at first, but it is vital for all who would seek to make a contribution in the world. For many years we have been observing the affairs of your world. We seek no relations with humanity. We are not here on a diplomatic mission. We have been sent by the unseen ones to live in the proximity of your world in order to observe the events we are about to describe. Our names are not important. They would be meaningless to you. And we shall not impart them for our own safety, for we must remain hidden in order that we may serve. To begin, it is necessary for people everywhere to understand that humanity is emerging into a greater community of intelligent life. Your world is being visited by several alien races and by several different organizations of races. This has been actively going on for some time. It is true that there have been visitations throughout human history, but nothing of this magnitude. The advent of nuclear weapons and the destruction of your natural world have brought these forces to your shores. Community into which you are emerging is a difficult environment and a challenging one, and yet it brings great opportunity and great possibilities for humanity. However, for these possibilities and these advantages to be realized, humanity must prepare and come to learn what life in the universe is like. And it must come to understand what spirituality means within a greater community of intelligent life. We understand from our own history that this is the greatest threshold that any world will ever face. It is not something, however, that you can plan for yourself. It is not something that you can design for your own future. For the very forces that would bring the greater community reality here are already present in the world. Circumstances have brought them here. They are here. Perhaps this gives you an idea of what life is like beyond your borders. We do not want to create an idea that is fearful, but it is necessary for your own well-being and for your future that you have an honest appraisal and can come to see these things clearly. The need to prepare for life in the greater community, we feel, is the greatest need there is in your world today. And yet, from our observation, people are preoccupied with their own affairs and their own problems in their daily lives, unaware of the greater forces that will change their destiny and affect their future. The forces and groups who are here today represent several different alliances. The forces and groups who are here today represent several different alliances. These different alliances are not united with each other in their efforts. Each alliance represents several different racial groups who are collaborating for the purpose of gaining access to your world's resources and maintaining this access. These different alliances are, in essence, competing with each other though they are not at war with one another. They see your world as a great prize, something they want to have for themselves. This creates a very great challenge for your people, for the forces who are visiting you not only have advanced technology, but also strong social cohesion and are able to influence thought in the mental environment. You see, in the greater community, technology is easily acquired, and so the great advantage between competing societies is the ability to influence thought. This has taken on very sophisticated demonstrations. It represents a set of skills that humanity is only beginning to discover. As a result, your visitors do not come armed with great weapons or with armies or with armadas of vessels. They come in relatively small groups, but they possess considerable skill in influencing people. This represents a more sophisticated and mature use of power in the greater community. It is this ability that humanity will have to cultivate in the future if it is to contend with other races successfully. The visitors are engaged in 4 fundamental activities in order to gain influence within your world. The visitors are here to gain humanity's allegiance. They do not want to destroy human establishments or the human presence. Instead, they wish to use these for their own benefit. Their intention is employment, not destruction. They feel that they are in the right because they believe that they are saving the world. Some even believe that they are saving humanity from itself. But this perspective does not serve your greater interests, nor does it foster wisdom or self-determination within the human family. Yet because there are forces of good within the greater community of worlds, you have allies. We represent the voice of your allies, the allies of humanity. We are not here to use your resources or to take from you what you possess. We do not seek to establish humanity as a client state or as a colony for our own use. Instead, we wish to foster strength and wisdom within humanity because we support this throughout the greater community. Our role, then, is quite essential, and our information is very needed because at this time even people who are aware of the presence of the visitors are not yet aware of their intentions. People do not understand the visitor's methods, and they do not comprehend the visitor's ethics or morality. People think the visitors are either angels or monsters, but in reality, they are very much like you in their needs. If you could see the world through their eyes, you would understand their consciousness and their motivation. But to do that, you would have to venture beyond your own. The visitors are engaged in 4 fundamental activities in order to gain influence within your world. Each of these activities is unique, but they are all coordinated together. They are being carried out because humanity has been studied for a long time. Human thought, human behavior, human physiology and human religion have been studied for some time. These are well understood by your visitors and will be used for their own purposes. The first area of activity of the visitors is to influence individuals in positions of power and authority. Because the visitors do not want to destroy anything in the world or harm the world's resources, they seek to gain influence over those whom they perceive to be in positions of power, within government and religion primarily. They seek contact, but only with certain individuals. They have the power to make this contact, and they have the power of persuasion. Not all whom they contact will be persuaded, but many will be. The promise of greater power, greater technology and world domination will intrigue and incite many individuals. And it is these individuals with whom the visitors will seek to establish a liaison. The promise of greater power, greater technology and world domination will intrigue and incite many individuals. And it is these individuals with whom the visitors will seek to establish a liaison. There are very few people in the governments of the world who are being so affected, but their numbers are growing. The visitors understand the hierarchy of power because they themselves live by it, following their own chain of command, you might say. They are highly organized and very focused in their endeavors, and the idea of having cultures full of free-thinking individuals is largely foreign to them. They do not comprehend or understand individual freedom. They are like many technologically advanced societies in the greater community who function both within their respective worlds and in their establishments across vast reaches of space, utilizing a very well established and rigid form of government and organization. They believe that humanity is chaotic and unruly, and they feel they are bringing order to a situation that they cannot themselves comprehend. Individual freedom is unknown to them, and they do not see its value. As a result, what they seek to establish in the world will not honor this freedom. Therefore, their first area of endeavor is to establish a liaison with individuals in positions of power and influence in order to gain their allegiance and to persuade them of the beneficial aspects of relationship and shared purpose. The second avenue of activity, which is perhaps the most difficult to consider from your perspective, is the manipulation of religious values and impulses. The visitors understand that humanity's greatest abilities also represent its greatest vulnerability. People's longing for individual redemption represents one of the greatest assets the human family has to offer, even to the greater community. But it is also your weakness. And it is these impulses and these values that will be used. Several groups of the visitors wish to establish themselves as spiritual agents because they know how to speak in the mental environment. They can communicate to people directly, and unfortunately, because there are very few people in the world who can discern the difference between the spiritual voice and the visitor's voice. The situation becomes very difficult. Therefore, the second area of activity is to gain people's allegiance through their religious and spiritual motivations. Actually, this can be done quite easily because humanity is not yet strong or developed in the mental environment. It is difficult for people to discern where these impulses are coming from. Many people want to give themselves to anything they think has a greater voice and a greater power. Your visitors can project images of your saints, of your teachers, of angels, images that are held dear and sacred within your world. They have cultivated this ability through many centuries of attempting to influence each other and by learning the ways of persuasion that are practiced in many places in the greater community. They consider you primitive, and so they feel they can exert this influence and use these methods upon you. Here there is an attempt to contact those individuals who are considered sensitive, receptive and naturally given to be cooperative. Many people will be selected, but a few will be chosen based upon these particular qualities. Your visitors will seek to gain allegiance with these individuals, to gain their trust and to gain their devotion, telling the recipients that the visitors are here to uplift humanity spiritually, to give humanity new hope, new blessings and new power. Indeed, promising the things that people want so dearly but have not yet found themselves. Perhaps you may wonder, how can such a thing occur? But we can assure you that it is not difficult once you learn these skills and abilities. The effort here is to pacify and to re-educate people through spiritual persuasion. This pacification program is used differently with different religious groups depending upon their ideals and their temperament. It is always aimed at receptive individuals. Here it is hoped that people will lose their sense of discernment and will become wholly trusting of the greater power that they feel is being given to them by the visitors. Once this allegiance is established, it becomes increasingly difficult for people to discern what they know within themselves from what is being told to them. It is a very subtle but very pervasive form of persuasion and manipulation. We shall speak more on this as we proceed. Let us now mention the third area of activity, which is to establish the visitor's presence in the world and to have people become used to this presence. They want humanity to become acclimated to this very great change that is occurring in your midst. To have you become acclimated to the visitor's physical presence and to their effect on your own mental environment. To serve this purpose, they will create establishments here, though not in view. These establishments will be hidden, but they will be very powerful in casting an influence on human populations that are near them. The visitors will take great care and time to make sure that these establishments are effective and that enough people are in allegiance to them. It is these people who will guard and preserve the visitor's presence. This is exactly what is occurring in your world at this time. It represents a great challenge and unfortunately a great risk. This very same thing that we are describing has happened so many times in so many places in the greater community. And emerging races such as your own are always the most vulnerable. Some emerging races are able to establish their own awareness, ability and cooperation to the extent that they can offset outside influences such as these and establish a presence and a position in the greater community. Yet many races, before they even attain this freedom, fall under the control and influence of foreign powers. We understand that this information may incite considerable fear and perhaps denial or confusion. But as we observe events, we realize that there are very few people who are aware of the situation as it actually exists. Even those people who are becoming aware of the presence of alien forces are not in a position and do not have the vantage point from which they can see the situation clearly. And being ever hopeful and optimistic, they seek to give this great phenomenon as much positive meaning as they can. However, the greater community is a competitive environment, a difficult environment. Those who engage in space travel do not necessarily represent the spiritually advanced, for those who engage in space travel do not necessarily represent the spiritually advanced. Spiritually advanced seek insulation from the greater community. They do not seek commerce. They do not seek to influence other races or to engage in a very complex array of relationships that are established for mutual trade and benefit. Instead, the spiritually advanced seek to remain hidden. This is a very different understanding, perhaps, but a necessary one for you to come to comprehend the great predicament that humanity is facing. Yet this predicament holds great possibilities. We would like to speak about these now. People everywhere have great spiritual gifts that can enable them to see and to know clearly. These gifts are needed now. Despite the gravity of the situation that we are describing, we do not feel that these circumstances are a tragedy for humanity. Indeed, if these circumstances can be recognized and understood, and if the preparation for the greater community, which now exists in the world, can be utilized, studied and applied, then people everywhere of good conscience will have the ability to learn greater community knowledge and wisdom. Thus, people everywhere will be able to find the basis for cooperation so that the human family can finally establish a unity that has never been established here before. For it will take the overshadowing of the greater community to unite humanity. And this overshadowing is occurring now. It is your evolution to emerge into a greater community of intelligent life. It will happen whether you are prepared or not. It must occur. Preparation, then, becomes the key. Understanding and clarity. These are the things that are necessary and needed in your world at this time. People everywhere have great spiritual gifts that can enable them to see and to know clearly. These gifts are needed now. They need to be recognized, employed and shared freely. It is not merely up to a great teacher or a great saint in your world to do this. It must be cultivated by many more people now. For the situation brings with it necessity. And if necessity can be embraced, it brings with it great opportunity. However, the requirements to learn about the greater community and to begin to experience greater community spirituality are tremendous. Never before have human beings had to learn such things in such a short period of time. Indeed, such things have rarely been learned ever by anyone in your world before. But now the need has changed. The circumstances are different. Now there are new influences in your midst, influences that you can feel and that you can know. The visitors seek to disable people from having this vision and this knowledge within themselves. For your visitors do not have it within themselves. They do not see its value. They do not understand its reality. In this, humanity as a whole is more advanced than they are. But this is only a potential which must now be cultivated. The alien presence in the world is growing. It is growing every day, every year. Many more people are falling under its persuasion, losing their ability to know, becoming confused and distracted, believing in things that can only weaken them and make them impotent in the face of those who would seek to use them for their own purposes. Humanity is an emerging race. It is vulnerable. It is facing a set of circumstances and influences now which it has never had to face before. You have only evolved to compete with each other. You have never had to compete with other forms of intelligent life. Yet it is this competition that will strengthen you and will call forth your greatest attributes if the situation can be clearly seen and understood. It is the role of the unseen ones to foster this strength. The unseen ones, whom you would rightly call angels, do not only speak to the human heart but to hearts everywhere who are able to listen and who have gained the freedom to listen. We come, then, with a difficult message, but a message of promise and hope. Perhaps it is not the message that people want to hear. It is certainly not the message that the visitors would promote. It is a message that can be shared from person to person, and it will be shared because it is natural to do so. Yet the visitors and those who have come under their persuasion will oppose such an awareness. They do not want to see an independent humanity. That is not their purpose. They do not even believe it is beneficial. Therefore, it is our sincere desire that these ideas be considered without trepidation, but with a serious mind and a deep concern that are well justified here. There are many people in the world today, we understand, who feel that a great change is coming for humanity. The unseen ones have told us these things. Many causes are attributed to this sense of change, and many outcomes are predicted. Yet unless you can begin to comprehend the reality that humanity is emerging into a greater community of intelligent life, you do not yet have the right context for understanding the destiny of humanity or the great change that is occurring in the world. From our perspective, people are born into their time to serve that time. This is a teaching in greater community spirituality, a teaching of which we are students as well. It teaches freedom and the power of shared purpose. It grants authority to the individual and to the individual who can join with others. Ideas which are rarely accepted or adopted in the greater community. For the greater community is not the heavenly state. It is a physical reality with the rigors of survival and all that entails. All beings within this reality must contend with these needs and issues. And in this, your visitors are more like you than you realize. They are not incomprehensible. They would seek to be incomprehensible, but they can be understood. You have the power to do this, but you must see with clear eyes. You must see with a greater vision and know with a greater intelligence, which you have the possibility to cultivate within yourselves. It is necessary for us now to speak more regarding the second area of influence and persuasion because this has great importance. And it is our sincere desire that you will understand these things and consider them for yourself. The religions of the world hold the key to human dedication and human allegiance, more than governments, more than any other institution. This speaks well for humanity because religions such as these are often hard to find in the greater community. Your world is rich in this respect, but your strength is also where you are weak and vulnerable. Many people want to be divinely guided and appointed, to give over the reins of their own lives and to have a greater spiritual power direct them, counsel them and preserve them. This is a genuine desire, but within a greater community context, considerable wisdom must be cultivated in order for this desire to be fulfilled. It is very sad for us to see how people will give their authority away so easily. Something they have never even fully had, they will give away willingly to those who are unknown to them. This message is destined to reach people who have a greater spiritual affinity. Therefore, it is necessary that we elaborate on this subject. We advocate a spirituality that is taught in the greater community, not the spirituality that is governed by nations, governments or political alliances, but a natural spirituality. The ability to know, to see and to act. And yet this is not emphasized by your visitors. They seek to have people believe that the visitors are their family, that the visitors are their home, that the visitors are their brothers and sisters, their mothers and fathers. Many people want to believe, and so they believe. People want to give over their personal authority, and so it is given over. People want to see friends and salvation in the visitors, and so this is what they are shown. People want to see friends and salvation in the visitors, and so this is what they are shown. It will take great sobriety and objectivity in order to see through these deceptions and these difficulties. It will be necessary for people to do this if humanity is to successfully emerge into the greater community and maintain its freedom and its self-determination in an environment of greater influences and greater forces. In this, your world could be overtaken without firing a shot, for violence is considered primitive and crude and is rarely employed in matters such as this. Perhaps you may ask, does this mean that there is an invasion of our world? We must say that the answer to this is yes, an invasion of the most subtle kind. If you can entertain these thoughts and consider them seriously, you will be able to see these things for yourself. The evidence of this invasion is everywhere. You can see how human ability is offset by the desire for happiness, peace and security, how people's vision and ability to know are hampered by influences even within their own cultures. How much greater these influences will be within a greater community environment. This is the difficult message that we must present. This is the message that must be said. The truth that must be spoken, the truth that is vital and cannot wait. It is so necessary for people now to learn a greater knowledge, a greater wisdom and a greater spirituality so that they may find their true abilities and be able to use them effectively. Your freedom is at stake. The future of your world is at stake. It is because of this that we have been sent here to speak for the allies of humanity. There are those in the universe who are keeping knowledge and wisdom alive and who practice a greater community spirituality. They do not travel all about, casting influence over different worlds. They do not take people against their will. They do not steal your animals and your plants. They do not cast influence over your governments. They do not seek to breed with humanity in order to create a new leadership here. Your allies do not interfere in human affairs. They do not manipulate human destiny. They watch from afar and they send emissaries such as ourselves, at great risk to us, to give counsel and encouragement and to clarify things when that becomes necessary. We, therefore, come in peace with a vital message. Now we must speak of the fourth area in which your visitors seek to establish themselves, and that is through interbreeding. They cannot live in your environment. They need your physical stamina. They need your natural affinity with the world. They need your reproductive abilities. They also want to bond with you because they understand that this creates allegiance. This, in a way, establishes their presence here because the offspring of such a program will have blood relations in the world and yet will have allegiance to the visitors. Perhaps this seems incredible, yet it is so very real. The visitors are not here to take your reproductive abilities away from you. They are here to establish themselves. They want humanity to believe in them and to serve them. They want humanity to work for them. They will promise anything, offer anything and do anything to achieve this goal. Yet though their persuasion is great, their numbers are small. But their influence is growing and their program of interbreeding, which has been underway for several generations, will eventually be effective. There will be human beings of greater intelligence but who do not represent the human family. Such things are possible and have occurred countless times in the greater community. You have only to look at your own history to see the impact of cultures and races upon one another and to see how dominating and how influential these interactions can be. Thus, we bring with us important news, serious news. But you must take heart, for this is not a time for ambivalence. This is not a time to seek escape. This is not a time to concern yourself with your own happiness. This is a time to contribute to the world, to strengthen the human family and to call forth those natural abilities that exist in people. The ability to see, to know and to act in harmony with one another. These abilities can offset the influence that is being cast upon humanity at this time, but these abilities must grow and be shared. It is of the utmost importance. This is our counsel. It comes with good intentions. Be glad that you have allies in the greater community. For allies you will need. You are entering a greater universe, filled with forces and influences that you have not yet learned how to counteract. You are entering a greater panorama of life. And you must prepare for this. Our words are but part of the preparation. A preparation is being sent into the world now. It does not come from us. It comes from the Creator of all life. It comes at just the right time. For this is the time for humanity to become strong and wise. You have the ability to do this. And the events and circumstances of your life create a great need for this. This is not a time to seek escape. This is not a time to concern yourself with your own happiness. This is a time to contribute to the world, to strengthen the human family. Humanity is approaching a very dangerous and very important time in its collective development. You are on the verge of emerging into a greater community of intelligent life. You will be encountering other races of beings who are coming to your world seeking to protect their interests and to discover what opportunities may lie ahead. They are not angels or angelic beings. They are not spiritual entities. They are beings who are coming to your world for resources, for alliances and to gain an advantage in an emerging world. They are not evil. They are not holy. In that, they are also much like you. They are simply driven by their needs, their associations, their beliefs and their collective goals. This is a very great time for humanity, but humanity is not prepared. From our vantage point, we can see this on a larger scale. We do not involve ourselves with the daily lives of individuals in the world. We do not attempt to persuade governments or to lay claim to certain parts of the world or to certain resources that exist here. Instead, we observe, and we wish to report what we observe, for this is our mission in being here. The unseen ones have told us that there are many people today who feel a strange discomfort, a sense of vague urgency, a feeling that something is going to happen and that something must be done. Perhaps there is nothing within their daily sphere of experience that justifies these deeper feelings, that verifies the importance of these feelings, or that gives substance to their expression. We can understand this because we have been through similar things ourselves in our own histories. We represent several races joined together in our small alliance to support the emergence of knowledge. There are many people today who feel a strange discomfort, a sense of vague urgency, a feeling that something is going to happen and that something must, and wisdom in the universe, particularly with races that are on the threshold of emerging into the greater community.